He can become a free agent at the end of the season. James Jones, you've been here for 6-7 months now, and you haven't heard, but your boy loves some Baker Mayfield. I truly do. Now, it's contrary to common and popular belief, because I went to Texas, Baker Mayfield went to OU, but I respect what he's done. He's earned a long-term deal from my mind. How many quarterbacks have done or could have done what Baker did? Now, we have data, because Derek Carr, he went to a new team, and he didn't make it to the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers, he went to a new team, and he got hurt. He didn't make it to the playoffs. Deshaun Watson in the last 2 years, he went to a new team, and he hasn't made it to the playoffs. We have data that what Baker is doing and has done in Tampa is actually very, very hard to do. You go to a new team with 4 months of an offseason and take that team to the playoffs, replacing the objectively and undebated greatest quarterback in the history of football. What Baker has done has clearly earned himself a long-term deal. And more than anything, the numbers speak for themselves. My dog has 2 seasons in the last 4 years, 25 passing touchdowns and 10 or less picks. Only 6 quarterbacks can say that. And he's done it with 2 different franchises, 2 different offensive coordinators, 2 different wide receiving corps, 2 different coaching schemes, 2 different cities. It's hard to do. He's earned himself a long-term deal. James Jones?
I hear it. You know, I'm a fan of Bake too. Not as big as you are, but, you know, I'm a fan too. But long-term deal tells me this is the guy that can take us to the Super Bowl. That's what a long-term deal says. Joe Burrow gets a long-term deal. They believe this is the guy that could take us to a Super Bowl and win it, right? Justin Herbert, they believe that this is the guy that could take us to a Super Bowl and win it. That's why these dudes get long-term deals. I don't necessarily think Baker Mayfield is a guy that can do that. So for me, he has played at an extremely high level. He's helped his team win some ball games. He got his team to the playoffs, and he's in the divisional round of the playoffs. But I will give him a short-term deal, because when you look at this football team, it's a lot of really good players, right? Baker Mayfield really does not have to do a lot. The defense is playing at a high level. He has Chris Godwin. He has Mike Evans. He has really good playmakers around him. I believe you do a short-term deal, 2 years, 3 years, around $80 million or something. That was a Kirk Cousins deal. And now you're able to build around Baker Mayfield. You got a defensive-minded head coach. You can go over there, get some more defensive players to make this defense even better, and he can find himself in the playoffs again. But when you say long-term again, that means $200 and something odd million, which means at one point you are not going to be able to sign other players. So are you telling me, Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization, that Baker Mayfield is one of those guys that you commit to like that, and now when other players are up, you let them walk because you think Baker Mayfield could cover some of that stuff up? I do not think so. So when you say long-term deal, I don't think he deserves a long-term deal, but short-term with what he has done, I will give him a short-term deal.
I wouldn't pay him a big money at all, right? I would try to find a way to keep him, right? Give him a 1 year, 2 year deal. I don't know about the 80th. That's
1 year.
That's Kirk Cousins type money. Yeah. I don't think he's on the same level as Kirk Cousins. I think if Kirk Cousins played for the Bucs, they'd be a lot better. Let's just talk about Baker Mayfield for who he is, right? It's his 6th season. He's the #1 pick overall, right? That's like guys like Cam Newton, Super Bowl. Goff went to Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning, Eli, you know what they did. That's what #1s are meant for, right?
Okay.
When you look at Baker Mayfield, in his 6th season, he's been on 4 teams.
Not great.
When I got to year 10, I started going to team to team. Yeah, year 6 is what we talk about, right? And to keep it honest, he's been talked about this much. Why is that, Acho? You're a bigger
First-round pick, former Heisman winner.
First pick overall,
yeah,
right? And I don't see the real results. For example, when I look at the Bucs, right, you talked about all these other quarterbacks, right? You talked about
Derek Carr.
Who else you said?
Aaron
Rodgers. Okay, let's just talk about that. So Aaron Rodgers in his division, he got tools, really good offense. And he got Josh Allen with the Bills. You know what they do. They win it every year, right? You go to his conference. He plays with the Saints, the Panthers, and the Falcons. The Falcons was 7-10.
Yep.
The Panthers was 2-15.
Yep.
And the Saints was 9-8. The Bucs was 9-8. They barely got in. So you about to pay this player, that quarterback, that they barely get in the playoffs at 9-8 because the best record in the division is 9-8. That's terrible. What are you paying for? As a GM or owner, what am I paying for? I'm paying for results. I'm paying for wins. If I'm gonna give you a long contract, I need my team to be good, and because you're the reason. He's not the reason. We bragging about him beating the Eagles. If he beat the Eagles and it was 10-1, yeah, let's clap it up for him. You beat the Eagles and it was bad. Not only did you beat the Eagles, right, in the playoffs, but so did the Giants. They whooped them, right? Tyrod Taylor, older Tyrod Taylor. What's the other?
Cardinals.
No. The Italian Stallion, not Rocky Balboa. But Vito, I mean, he got a little run. He beat him. The Cardinals, they weren't even trying to win. They beat them. So when you look at this win in the playoffs, you beat the Eagles. I can't even sit there and pat your back and act like you really like that because everybody's beating the Eagles. Everybody's beating them. Talking about a long contract.
I feel like we're moving goalposts, Joy.
Are we?
I feel like we are.
I'm just telling you the truth. Everything says the truth.
Here's why I feel like we're moving goalposts.
Okay.
Because now we're quantifying playoff wins. I feel like this whole show, not just today, but in this whole time doing speak, we talk about the only way you can win a Super Bowl is if you make it to the playoffs. Only way you can win a Super Bowl is if you win playoff games. And now all of a sudden we're judging him for making it to the playoffs because his division wasn't great. And now all of a sudden we're saying he beat a bad team that beat him earlier in the season. All of a sudden I feel like we're moving the goalposts further and further away. He made it to the playoffs. We've consistently said only way you can win is if you get there. Yeah. We just said it about Tomlin. And then he won a playoff game, but now we're saying, yeah, well, he beat a bad team. Come on, man. Like
I could never see myself paying a player, right, the number one pick overall. You never touched a Pro Bowl. That's not even hard to do. Let's think about that for a second, though. You've never sniffed a Pro Bowl. How can I'm going to pay you some money, some real money? Come on, bro.
Really.
Come on, man.
You the GM for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. Baker Mayfield and his team walk into your office. You comfortable.
Yeah.
Acho, you comfortable with saying, here go 5 years, 200. Like, because that's long-term what we talking.
I'm not, Joy.
So you're short-term. And they better stand up. You don't deserve to sit on my couch. You better stand up and talk.
So, no, I'm not comfortable, Joy, giving him $200 million.
So what's the deal? What's the long-term deal to you?
I'm comfortable giving him 3 years, $100 million.
So that's short. That's
3 years guaranteed. It can be 5 years, you know what I'm saying? 5 years, 170, but $100 million's guaranteed.
And draft a young fella behind him. Joy, can you go?
Here's why you're being counted out, Baker. It's always fun to be counted out. You counted out because you're 9-8. You're counted out because even though you just won a playoff game, you are 6.5-point dogs in the divisional round. That's why you're counted out. You weren't a good team during the regular season. You were barely over 500. You barely made the playoffs. Now, I'm not moving the goalposts for playoff wins, but we think that the Bucs are going to win this weekend. Now, if the Bucs win this weekend, I'll swallow everything I just said. No pause. I will, because now you're in the conference championship game. Yeah. That's a different conversation. Okay, now I know you can lead a team that wasn't good during the regular season and win when it matters most. But right now, as we're currently sitting at this desk, you haven't done that. You've been on 4 teams in 6 years as the number 1 overall pick. You didn't have a good regular season this year. Somebody had to win the division. So that's how it works. We got divisions, somebody got to win it. And you just happen to be the team that ended up winning it. Someone had to win that division. So cool, you did it. You were good enough to win the division. You made it to the postseason. You beat a bad Eagles team. Cool, it's a playoff win. I love that for you. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about committing to Baker Mayfield with money that will keep you from paying other players. True. And the one thing I know about Baker Mayfield, because I've been talking about Baker Mayfield for a long time, when Baker gets comfortable.
That's true.
Okay? Because it just started.
No doubt.
We got one playoff win against the Eagles team. It's fun to be counted out. There is a reason that they were counting you out. There is a reason they're still counting you out. And are you going to be chirping like that if the Lions go like this?
Okay.
Now, they might not. They might beat the Lions. I don't think that they will. But if they do, then you can do that. But that is what I'm saying. I like that deal, right? A short-term deal. I think he's earned the right to be the quarterback there next year. I think he's good enough to get you to the playoffs. But what is the standard? What's the standard? Is the standard getting to the playoffs? Cool. Sign Baker for as long as you want. Because he can get you to the playoffs. He might get you a playoff win over a bad team.
But here's what's interesting. I got one final thought. I want y'all to respond to it. One, I would say that's interesting what Joy brought up. Because Baker has taken 2 of the historically worst franchises and won playoff games. The Browns, terrible. They drafted me. Shout out to them for drafting me. Shout out to Tom Heckert. Rest in peace. And then also the Bucs, historically atrocious. Shout out to Tom Brady for coming there, fixing them up. But as Shady has so eloquently said, that was the same bad Bucs team that you added Tom Brady to, plus Antonio Brown, plus Gronkowski. You win. And no doubt, 2-5. You already know what it is. You took him out and you added Baker there. That's that same bad Bucs team. So he won with the Bucs and you won with the Browns. But here's my thought. Who's been better off, what organizations, without Baker? Let's start with the Browns. They weren't better off with Deshaun than they were with Baker. The Browns had a better
year this year with 4 different quarterbacks.
Not than Baker's 11-5 season when Baker won a playoff game. Not better.
Oh, his best year, you saying?
Yes, sir. The year he had stability. The Panthers, 2-15. They weren't better off. Now the Rams, obviously. Rams had Matthew Stafford. They're Matthew Stafford, clearly. Then the Bucs. Last year they were 8-9 in this sorry division. This year they're 9-8. So I'm just saying y'all are right. He's been on 4 different teams. That's not good. But the Browns weren't better off. Panthers weren't better off. Bucs aren't better off. So I'm just sitting here looking at the data saying to myself, nobody outside of the Rams, and they have Matthew Stafford, has been better off without Baker.
Better off. They're 1 game better this year. Mm-hmm. Right? And that might end up being the difference. Because who knows? They go beat the Lions in the conference championship game, whatever. Or maybe they lose this week. Mm-hmm. And then they were one game better, 1 playoff win. We're talking about a long-term deal here. That's the difference. Do you feel like Baker Mayfield is a franchise quarterback, or you feel like he's a bridge quarterback?
Such a good question. I feel like he's a bridge.
Okay, wrong question.
That was a great question.
Nope. Feelings out. Is Baker Mayfield a bridge quarterback, or is he a franchise quarterback? Because the difference to me is if he goes to a conference championship game, that is a different conversation to me.
But, Joy, here's where I got to challenge you, because I got to challenge me. I think we are wrong in our head. Think about all the quarterbacks. Think about every quarterback remaining in the playoffs. Stroud, first-round pick. Mm-hmm. Allen, first-round pick. Mahomes, first-round pick. Lamar, first-round pick. Goff, first-round pick.
Josh.
No, where I said him. Hey, go back to NFC. Jordan Love, first-round pick. Baker, first-round pick. Baker's in his company. Brock Purdy's the only one that's not a first-round pick. So Baker's looking around like, oh, you a first-round pick? Oh, baby, you here too? Oh, I'm here too? Oh, we all here. This is family. Jalen Hurts got kicked out. He wasn't a first-round pick. Dak got kicked out. He wasn't a first-round pick. So if you're Baker, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm here.
Who's the worst one out of all these quarterbacks you just named? Out of all the quarterbacks in the playoffs, who's the worst one out of all the names you said? I said, who's the worst one out of everybody?
Baker. He would say Baker, right?
Of course.
This one thing that I've learned with playing with great quarterbacks, right? Having the opportunity to play with Brett Favre, having the opportunity to play with Aaron Rodgers, right? Consistency. You know what you're going to get from these dudes every single time they step in between them lines.
Mm-hmm. But has Baker gotten
consistency? Do you know what you're going to get from Baker year in and year out in between these lines? And the only reason why I say that is because you leave Cleveland, right, and you go to Carolina and you get benched, you get cut for playing bad. Then you go to the Rams, right, you play average. And then you get into the playoffs playing average.
Come on, don't do this, James.
So this ain't average.
He's playing above average, of course. You gonna let him do this, Shady?
9-8.
You gonna let him do this?
Above average. 9-8 is above average.
Technically, literally it is, but that's besides the point. My thought, though, last thought.
Come on now. He's a bridge quarterback. And
here's my last thought is, if you said something, James, you said you pay guys because you think that they can take you, long-term deals, guys who can take us to the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
That's what you said.
Yes.
But I'm saying, like, Kyler, he's gotten a long-term deal. Mm-hmm. You feel me? I don't know what he can do. Deshaun, he got a long-term deal. I don't know what he can do. Herbert, he got a long-term deal. I don't know what he can do. The Broncos just, not the Broncos, who am I talking about? Like, you've paid guys who it's like, you know Kyler can
So that's why I'm coming.
We weren't sure if it was a good idea to pay Kyler, and we actually still aren't sure if you could pay Kyler. The Browns wanted to pay Baker Mayfield. That's what they drafted him #1 overall in the draft to do. When you take a quarterback #1 overall in the draft, anyone you take #1 overall in the draft, your goal is to sign them to a long-term deal.
Forever.
You want them to be there for their entire career if they can, specifically a quarterback.
That is true.
Who messed that up?
The Browns.
Baker's play didn't mess it up.
He did.
Baker's play, how he acted in the building, how he interacted with everybody. Do we need to look up some receipts of some beefs with some other great players there? Like, there were some factors that Baker contributed to not getting paid.
You're not wrong.
He is the reason why Deshaun Watson is there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but then it comes back to Shady's question though, because you name Herbert and you name Kyler and you name who else got paid, Burrow, and you name all these dudes. Watson, who he better than? I think that's what it comes to. So like you saying these dudes' numbers are getting paid, but then at the end of the day you're gonna sit back and say Baker ain't better than them. So that's why I'm saying when we talk long term, that means we believe that you taking us there. Baker ain't taking you there. At least I don't believe it. He might prove me wrong, go to the NFC Championship, beat the Packers, because I'm picking the Pack. All right, beat the Packers and go to the Super Bowl. Who knows? But you think that's going to happen?
Anything can happen.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.